Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another of my PlayStation 4 reviews. And today's review is for Marvel's Avengers. Now I got this game a little bit early because I pre-ordered it, so I got it. I've been playing it pretty much full on since Tuesday when I was allowed to play it early. Now this game, I did do a video a few weeks ago on the beta. I did get the opportunity to play the beta and I gave my thoughts on the game then, and they were reasonably positive, the feedback on the beta. However, now this is the full game, and let's be honest here, this game, the weight of expectations here for any game developer to deliver a Marvel Avengers game that is going to satisfy everybody, and that means not just the fans but gamers in general, game reviewers, you name it. A huge amount of expectation here. Have they managed to deliver here a game that is worth playing? In some aspects, yes, I do think they have. Have they delivered a game here that the fans of the Marvel universe are going to enjoy? Again, yes, aspects of the game I think they will enjoy it too. Now this game has had a reasonable amount of flack for a number of reasons, some of it justified, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Some of the criticism has been thrown at the game that the characters look like cosplayers playing the Marvel characters that we all know and love. Well, I don't really buy into that, if I'm honest. You know, these characters have not always looked like their cinema counterparts. Iron Man hasn't always looked like Robert Downey Jr. Hulk hasn't always looked like Mark Ruffalo, etc, etc. So I don't mind that they've used a little bit of creative license here to create original looking Marvel characters. I don't think it distracts from the game or the story at all, in my personal opinion. The voice acting on display here in the game I think is pretty top quality stuff. They've got obviously some of the best known voice actors in the industry to voice these characters, and their professionalism shines through. Another aspect of this game that personally I am really quite enjoying, I don't really have that much of a problem with, is the story. And the story here focuses on, and initially you start off as a character called Kamala Khan, who is a huge fan of the Avengers. She's invited to the Avengers Day, she's written a fan fiction story, and she's hoping that she will win a prize because of that. So you're at this fan fiction day, and then everything, all hell breaks loose, as we've seen on videos and introductions before now. Something goes terribly wrong, and then the story switches to 5 years later. The Avengers failed, all these new Inhumans have been created, and Kamala Khan is one of them. And she discovers some information that proves that the Avengers were possibly innocent and that Captain America was potentially murdered. And she tries to seek out the Avengers to help her. And that essentially is where the story takes off. So I actually, genuinely, I didn't mind this story. I personally thought the first 2 or 3 hours of this game were expertly constructed. The intro was brilliant, where she's walking around the Avengers Day, talking to different vendors, having to go on different games, collecting comics, having a couple of run-ins with the Avengers. Brilliant. And then the opening level, excellently done, where you get a chance to sample each of the Avengers and their powers. Brilliantly done. And continuing on from that 5 years later, there's a couple of levels again that are really nicely done. It really introduces you well to this game. Where this game falters a little bit, I think, is after that 2 or 3 hours. The mission structure becomes a little bit muddled. You've got this strange structure of, you know, potentially like doing these missions with multiplayer companions, or doing them with AI companions, and it all gets a bit muddled. You've got these faction missions, and you've got these other missions, and it all gets, I guess, what some of these other live service games are like. It gets a bit confused, and it loses its focus because of it. And I think it harms the game. This what we could have had here was an incredibly well constructed linear game, and the first 2 or 3 hours proved that we could have had that game. Now that's not me basically saying this game is terrible, because I genuinely don't think it is. I'm actually really quite enjoying it. I've not finished it yet, but I've put a lot of time into it, and what's keeping me going is the story, and the interactions between the characters, the cutscenes and things like that. I'm quite enjoying all that side of it. It is really nicely done, but some of the missions I personally find to be quite repetitive, and the missions work where whatever mission you choose, generally speaking, you're dropped into this hub, and they're quite large hubs, and they do that because you've got characters that can fly, like Iron Man, Thor, etc., and Hulk, who can travel large distances with his jumping and things like that. So you can either head straight towards your target area, or there's other things that you can do in these levels. You can rescue civilians type of things, you can find these treasure chests and get different gear, all that kind of resources. So you can travel around this hub and do all these other things, or you can head straight to the mission directive and do that as well. And the choice is yours really, but it doesn't really evolve from anything more than button bashing. It's not well enough put together that each character feels unique enough for me. You've got your light attacks, you've got your heavy attacks, and you've got like your 3 heroic abilities. And yes, they look different for each character, and they kind of act differently for each character, but they all kind of do similar things. And all the Avengers, I feel like they're powered very similarly, in a sense of they all go down as easy as each other, and vice versa. You would think that Hulk would be massively overpowered, and at times he does feel overpowered, and then at other times he feels underpowered. The balance isn't always right for these characters, but there's no denying it. It's pretty cool flying around these levels as Iron Man and Thor, and then bouncing around these levels as Hulk, and smashing up the environments and smashing up the enemies. There are aspects of it that is fun, generally speaking, but it is definitely repetitive, and you will get bored of the mission structures reasonably quickly here. The screen can get certainly quite messy during the combat. There's effects flying everywhere, there's things smashing up, there's explosions, and it does get a little bit messy and unfocused at times when you're playing this. There's this loot system in the game that seems pointless to me. You've got cosmetics in the game, i.e. different costumes that you can unlock, and we'll talk about the microtransactions soon for this. So you can change different outfits in the game once you unlock them and things like that, but you've got this gear and loot that you collect in the game that you can add to your character, and it will make them more powerful slightly, but it doesn't add any cosmetic changes to your costume. And I think what they should have done here is a system very similar to Injustice 2, you know, where when you find loot you can clip it onto your armour or your costume and stuff and make it look differently cosmetically. But they haven't done that, and do you know why they haven't done that? Is because they want you to spend money in the in-game store, so that you can buy credits to buy the in-store costumes and things like that. And you can buy things like new outfits, takedowns, emotes and nameplates for each of the characters if you choose to do that. I won't do that. I will never do that. I never spend money in games when there's microtransactions. So for me, if I can't access it within the game by playing the game, I will never spend money on it. So take of that what you will in regards to the microtransactions in this game. Many people feel a bit cheated because they said everything was free. Well, they didn't say everything was free. They said any new Avengers that are included in the game will be free. But they didn't specify in the other areas, which is a bit devious, I think that's fair to say. But yeah, there's a way to spend money in the game if you really want all the costumes, but I'm not really that fussed. They just skinned differently. It doesn't change how they play the game or anything like that. What else is there to say? I mean, personally, it just didn't need to be a live service game. I think they've turned what could have been, and at the very core of this game there is a real game screaming to get out. and the visuals are impressive, the graphics are impressive, the voice casting's impressive, the cutscenes are impressive. Some of the missions are reasonably well done and pretty cool. Some of the enemy designs are interesting, if not a bit repetitive. You'll be sick of fighting robots by the end of it. But it didn't need to be a live service game. They've kind of ruined it, I think, by turning it into this live service game that it didn't need to be. They could have done something like Marvel Spider-Man and given all these plaudits for creating this really fun superhero game to play, but they haven't really done that. They've gone down a different road, and in my opinion it doesn't particularly work, the live service aspect of this game. But if you're a fan of live service games, if you're a fan of games like Anthem, and who is, to be honest, and maybe Destiny and things like that, there's aspects here that you will find interesting, certainly. I have experienced some crashes here in this game occasionally, which can be frustrated. I have experienced my fair share of bugs in this game. Characters disappearing on screen when you're changing the costumes. For example, Black Widow, I'd just unlocked Black Widow, and then you change her into this new costume, and then she's disappeared all of a sudden. But it didn't last long, and she came back. 2 or 3 crashes I've had in this game, but nothing major that I would say is game breaking here in regards to bugs and things like that. So to summarise really with this game, what do we get? Well, you get a bit of a mishmash of a game. If you're a fan of the Avengers, if you're a fan of Marvel Universe in general, I think there's a game here that you're going to enjoy. There are aspects of it that you will enjoy. There are fun aspects of it. It does get very, very messy. You've got your base of operations on the helicarrier, and it is cool to explore that initially, and then after several hours it starts filling up with all these people, and this is what I mean. It feels like it's a bit overwhelming. It's a bit like, oh, this is too much, and you've got this vendor selling this, you've got this vendor over there selling that, you've got a vendor in the corner selling this, that and the other, you've got places to put inventory items that you're not interested in. If you don't need it, you just dismantle it, and you just for a looter shooter per se, looter shooters should get you excited for the next piece of loot, and this game doesn't. You'll see a chest, it'll open it, but it doesn't really do anything. It just, it'll change a piece of gear from a 9 to a 10, and that's it. It doesn't change anything cosmetically, and I think it was critically a mistake to not change how you look cosmetically like they did in Injustice 2. I think that would have been a really cool aspect of this game, and I think it would have made people excited to find and open more loot, but they've gone down, like I say, the questionable route of microtransactions here, and to be honest, when looking in the in-game store, I've been scratching my head thinking, well, who'd want to spend money on these things? They're not that interesting anyway, the stuff that they're wanting you to spend the money on. So I don't understand the mentality. If they'd have put something exciting in the store, that you'd really potentially want to spend your money on, I could half understand it. But you're looking there and you're like, well, why do I want to spend money and unlock a nameplate or an emote or that crappy costume you've got there that I'm not interested in? So I think they dropped the ball somewhat here, Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, but the very core of the game here I am enjoying. I really am enjoying aspects of it. The story's good. I do enjoy the visuals. I think Kamala Khan's an excellent character. I wasn't sure I was going to like her, but I really am enjoying her character, and it's really, really cool to interact with all these Avengers. So some aspects, it's a really fun Avengers game, but it's not really the Avengers game that we all really wanted and hoped for, unfortunately. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm slightly disappointed with it. However, it is a game that I am enjoying and I will continue to enjoy, but I will certainly not be spending any money in this game, and I would urge all of you not to either, and it will send a message, very clear message to these game developers, that we do not want it in these games, and it is in fact harming the gaming experience overall. So that's my review for Marvel's Avengers. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. Thank you once again for watching.